Well, thank you all for joining today. I'm going to just start our intro here. Should technology providers, parents, and educators share the responsibility of protecting young people? Are they the first line of defense against the risks of using metaverse platforms? This panel will focus on how we can promote awareness about controls and mechanisms available to guardians and children for building an inclusive, safe, and healthy metaverse. Please welcome moderator Dean Takahashi. Dean Takahashi is the lead writer for GamesBeat at VentureBeat. He's been a tech journalist since 1988, and he has covered games as a beat since 1996. He has been at VentureBeat since 2008. Prior to that, he wrote for the San Jose Mercury News, the Red Herring, the Wall Street Journal, the Los Angeles Times, and the Dallas Times Herald. He is the author of 2 books, Opening the Xbox and the Xbox 360 Uncloaked. He organizes the annual GamesBeat and GamesBeat Summit conferences. We're joined by Jessica Stone, PhD. She's a licensed psychologist working in private practice in Colorado. She's been a practitioner, professor, mentor, and author for over 25 years. Dr. Stone's interest in therapeutic digital tools, specifically virtual reality, tablets, and consoles, has culminated in clinical mental health use and research for mental health, medical, and crisis settings. She's the co-creator of the Virtual Sandtray app for iPad and the Virtual Sandtray for virtual reality. It's VSA VR. Dr. Stone has numerous publications, including Integrating Technology into Modern Therapies, Gameplay, Play Therapy Theory and Perspectives, Play Therapy and Telemental Health, Digital Play Therapy, and numerous chapters in various books. He has served as the president of the California Association for Play Therapy branch, the APT Leadership Academy chair, on the Association for Play Therapy Nominations Committee, is a member of the OpPlay and Digital Play Therapy advisory boards, serves as an affiliate for the East Carolina University College of Education Neurocognition Science Laboratory. Amber Hawks, who may still be joining us here just yet, is a subject matter expert in online safety, human trafficking, and violence against women and children. 15 years of experience building strategy and programs, leading teams and conducting policy and legal advocacy in the nonprofit, government, and for-profit sectors. She currently consults with leading technology companies, nonprofits, and UN bodies on initiatives to protect people from technology-facilitated abuse. Amber was most recently the Asia Pacific head for safety, Meta, which was then Facebook at the time. In this role, she drove regional safety policy strategy and engaged with NGOs and policymakers across the region. The issues of child safety, women's safety, online well-being, including bullying prevention and suicide prevention, human trafficking, to continuously improve content policies, products, tools, and resources to help keep the Facebook community safe. Before this, Amber was the founding chief executive of the Australian partner of global anti-trafficking NGO, International Justice Mission, or IJM, leading a team working to strengthen the responsive justice systems to protect the vulnerable across the region. She also led IJM's team of lawyers prosecuting human trafficking cases in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, India. She worked for the Australian federal government prosecuting online child sexual exploitation, human trafficking, and sex tourism cases. We also have Kath Nibbs with us. She is a clinical doctoral researcher, online harms consultant, public speaker, author, and child/adult trauma psychotherapist. She writes about and works with cyber trauma, which is any trauma that occurs through an internet-ready device, and writes about why we do what we do in the digital spaces. This is much more than online harm policies cover to date. She is co-director of the journal Cybersecurity and Digital Mental Health under Frontiers. She is the digital lead for the West Yorkshire Adversity, Trauma, and Resilience Framework, creating a trauma-informed county for all areas of life and work. Kath Nibbs is a tech geek, gamer of sorts, therapist, and cyber trauma/trauma psychotherapist using biofeedback technology and gaming to elicit post-traumatic growth, healing, and flow. Recently published book is available now. The book focuses on the why we do what we do in cyberspace and how to help children, young people, and adults. She has a further 3 books with outlets due soon for practitioners. She is a disruptor, an advocate for children's rights, privacy, and digital explorations online. She also educates therapists via her company Privacy4 about data protection, privacy, and cybersecurity issues concerning their practice. She's also the mental health advisor and trustee of Gamers Beat Cancer charity and a director for Online Safety UK, alongside specialist consultancy and expertise for Get Safe Online and Internet Matters and Trust and Safety for the International Cybersecurity Forum. She's a panelist at the Vulnerable Users Working Group for UK Safety Internet Center. She's also a TEDx speaker this year on the importance of relationships surrounded by technology. Very proud to have you all here with us today. I will now hand over and just ask that you please amplify your voice before you start speaking. And you can do that through the host tools on your right-hand side. Choose the megaphone to amplify your voice. Thank you. Looking forward to your chat.
Right, Dane, you're live.
That was certainly a lot of information about all of us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Now I think I'm ready now. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, I'm Dean Takahashi. I'm the lead writer for GamesBeat at VentureBeat. And I'm going to be hosting a Metaverse conference on February 1st and 2nd online. And so this is a nice little experiment for figuring out how to do an online reception. Okay, I just got appointed to be host. And so I think, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, if you could
Yes.
amplify your voice. And
Oh, awesome.
host
Okay.
tools,
All right.
and now
Okay.
amplify your voice.
All right. So yeah, I'm just said a few things. I'm not sure if everybody heard me, but I cut that introduction short. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for joining us. I'm going to start right off with a question on what's the state of safeguarding our young people from online discourse, and I'm going to start on the other end there. Jessica, why don't you tackle that one for us first?
Could you repeat the question?
So what's the state of safeguarding our young people from online discourse? Where do you think we are right now?
Well, I mean, we have had a fantastic day already with the panels and the presentations so far today, and also in the last 2 days, who have really focused on and talked about a lot of those pieces. I think what so much of it boils down to is there's a lot that we think is important. There's a lot that we hope can be baked in and brought to the forefront, which is, why we're all here this whole week. And then there is a lot that is unknown. And so in that, I think it's particularly for our panel in talking about safeguarding young generations and trying to bring together really the village, right? The team who's going to, whatever level that might mean, to bring us together to have policies, procedures, protections, and safety in place so that vulnerable populations can protect themselves. We can help to protect each other. And to be honest, it's fascinating to me that we can have some of these levels of protection in a virtual space in a way that we are unable to in physical world in some ways. So I think the expansiveness is fantastic, and then the ability to speak in specifics and come up with some policies is a wonderful goal, and that's what we're here for.
And
anyone else?
Amber, would you like to tackle that same question? Where are we today?
Sure, and hopefully you can hear me, and I hope my connection's sufficient. Where are we today? Well, I mean, you asked what the state of it is. I think it's insufficient in one word, but I'm hopeful. And I think, I'm coming from too is with my background and the things that I've been seeing or focused on is sort of thinking about, we often think of vulnerable people. We think
I just lost some volume from Amber.
Me too.
Okay. Let's see. So, Kathy, would you like to take over while Amber's
Yeah,
recovering there?
certainly. I can jump in for now. I think where we are, well, let's say we are at the beginning.
we are in the middle at the same time. And the reason I'm kind of using tenses, so to speak, is because we don't know entirely where the landscape will take us. Therefore, that would put us right at the beginning of understanding what it is we need to do to safeguard children. But I also think there's plenty of us in this room and in the spaces where the technology is being developed, that many of us have already succeeded our childhood, and therefore we've got a really good idea about how we can possibly safeguard children coming into the spaces that we already are in. But also we've got that knowledge of being a human being and surviving life. So I would say that we are in the middle of a new concept, as in the metaverse, whatever that may turn out to be. But at the same time, it's skill sets that we already have as those adults after navigating that child developmental phase that we've been through.
Mm-hmm. And Kathy, I guess when we're starting with you on the second question here, when you think about the future, what would you expect in terms of protections for young people when it comes to metaverse, or whatever we're going to be calling the metaverse?
Okay. I mean, it is a really, really good question in terms of what do I expect? I have no idea, because each week, and I would say each week in my clinical practice, a child brings in a brand new event every single week over something that's happened that I've never heard before. And what I've, if you like, collected over the last decade or so is a rather large cohort of things that happen to children. But I think the metaverse is something that I personally want to kind of describe as a blended version of mind, body, and behavior, not just technology. So there is new child developmental spaces and theories that we need to consider. And the way that technology has an impact on us is going to change the way that we behave. And to date, we have lots and lots of theories as to why people do what they do and how we can actually protect children in what I refer to as the corporeal space, the real world. And we're going to have this blended, overarching new space. And as a result, clinicians, researchers, theorists, even the developers of technology are going to be bringing stuff together, and children, as we're talking about today, are going to be navigating that space. And I think Dave Wright mentioned it earlier in his speech that we don't know how children are going to use this technology until they do. So it's like predicting the lottery numbers. I can take a good guess out of 49 of them, but I would have to get the right 6 in the right combination to actually win that question, if that makes sense.
If you think we have some kind of maybe analogy to the metaverse today, would you say it's Roblox, or is there something else you would have in mind that maybe is just a little closer to the kind of environment, I guess, that we're going to have to manage?
To be honest, I don't think there is an analogy. I think there's a good TV program that we could all look towards in terms of Black Mirror, or maybe even films like Minority Report. But we are best guessing as to what it will look like. And considering the technology at the moment is changing into haptic, olfactory, we've got sound. Our bodies are going to be changing in reaction to those spaces. And I think that the technology is becoming so ubiquitous that it's actually going to become, here we are going towards Neuralink and, the cybernetic types of technology. So I don't think that the gaming space is enough to understand it fully and comprehend it, which is why we need these conversations like today.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Jessica, same question for you. When you think about the future, what would you expect in terms of protections for young people when it comes to the metaverse?
So I really appreciate and enjoy taking deep dives into history. And looking back on the trends, human trends, the things that stay consistent, the things that have changed. And even if we go back to Aristotle and the complaints that he reportedly had about writing things down, that he said that we would lose the art of conversation if we start writing things down. So we can go really, really far back to say when things change, there are periods of time of great chaos and unrest, things that are unknown, things that are changing very quickly. The impacts of those changes, it's difficult to predict. It's much easier to look backwards and say, oh, that's how that ended up panning out. So I would say a fair share of chaos is what we should expect. I think as the digital natives, so those who have grown up in and having digital tools as part of their day-to-day life, as they become older, and as those of us, including myself, who did not grow up in that. I mean, I remember when it was a super exciting thing that people started getting answering machines. And before that, a phone rang and nobody answered, and there was no way to know who it was or what they wanted. And then all of a sudden, we had these really amazing machines at the time that could answer the call for you and record a message. So I definitely am not a digital native, and what that means is that I bring, and as my colleagues and my peers bring a certain level of experience and understanding of the world that is different. So I am ascribing things to and meanings of different experiences and environments that will be different than a digital native will and already is. So what that means is there's going to be some sort of a learning curve and a correction to that process that will not really show itself to us, I think, for a couple more generations. Having said that, it doesn't mean we just sit around and say, okay, it's going to be chaotic. What we're trying to do is learn from the past, learn from different technological advances over time, and to be able to do our best to find the places where we really need to pay attention, understand the mistakes that we have made in the past, and try to, as best we can, not repeat those, and to help vulnerable populations. And I say that because we're talking about children, but I think that includes a whole host of people, and in different ways and for different reasons, that really need a bigger picture, businesses, caregivers, whoever that might be, to help guide. And we want them to be in the very best position they can as they move forward in the future in these digital realms.
And same follow-up question for you. Do you think Roblox is a good example of what we need to manage or what we need to safeguard? And, you know, are we learning about safeguarding the metaverse by managing something like Roblox yet?
So the audio just got strange. Can you all hear me still?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know if it was me or other. So anyway, I'm not sure that this addresses what you're asking, but where my brain goes when you ask that question is that, so as a psychologist who uses digital tools in session and talks with families and caregivers and clients about that, Roblox and Minecraft have both done some pretty impressive things with regards to putting in safeguards. I'm not saying anything is perfect. That's not what I'm saying. But the ability, say, for Roblox of a parent to have a pin that needs to be sent to the parent and then given to the child so that they can get on, different protections in the chat and age ranges. And I think that between that and also for both companies, Minecraft and Roblox, the focus on education and the resources for parents, those have all been impressive. And I think they do supply a good number of starting points, for sure, for other digital realms to even if it is implemented in a different way because the platform is different, the ideas of the need for these protections are very important. So I'm not sure if that's what you were asking, but that's where my mind goes with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very interesting that that's one of the places where I think maybe doing a lot of learning right now about how to protect people, how to protect young kids. But yeah, there's so much further that we have to go with technology still. Like Roblox doesn't really have voice chat up and running for most of the population yet, and so that sort of they're moderating sort of the generation ago moderating text right now and what people can say in text chat to each other, but it's going to up the game a bit when they transition over to voice chat, I think. Of
course.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, it's I think we have things in place in gaming, I guess, like the Fair Play Alliance and the Oasis Consortium has been active as well. And I do wonder whether we're getting together the organizations that we need, for the metaverse yet. Do you guys feel like we're making progress on that front? Let's start with Kathy on that one. And hi, Amber. Welcome back.
Yeah, I was going to say Amber's back, isn't she? So certainly in the realm of putting together services that are trying to protect children in different ways. So, for example, on the last panel we had We Protect. We've got services that are going into education. We've got services that are looking at other kinds of harms. So we are certainly making a start, and I certainly think it's going to be collaborative. I think we need to certainly bring together parents, education, sector, developers, those that have been in and around the protective spaces for a long time. And that isn't going to happen overnight. And we are in the process of doing that for Web 2.0. And as long as we can put those things in place, get people talking, we'll probably be able to get some of this in time for the metaverse, but we are already in there. And I go back to that kind of reference that I made earlier at the beginning and the middle.
Okay. And Amber, can you talk to see if we've got your audio back as well?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Working good. So.
Wow. Hopefully this lasts.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I think the
here.
only thing I would add to that is that I hope that as we move forward with that collaboration cross-sector, that we can also ensure that the insights that we gather are cross-cultural as well, and that we are really understanding the impact and the differences among communities and use cases in different cultures. And I think, that's what we can, I think it's one of the lessons of where we can look back and we've learned from social media is that, even now, a lot of the design is done with certain, even when youth or vulnerable populations are considered in design, they are usually, say youth in the US or, certain populations that are, for various reasons easier to access. However, we know that these products get adopted, and that's the aim. As the industry grows, as use is expanded, that they're adopted across the world. And so I just think it would be good this time if a lot of those insights and that collaboration happened early, so that we could get different perspectives and different opinions, and more informing design earlier.
Great. And Jessica, you want to add anything?
Sure. Yeah. So I think some of the most impressive pieces about certainly this whole week, and then also some other groups that are together. I have started a mental health virtual reality international coalition, has brought together so many people who work in this space, and just amazing professionals. So it's really impressive that we have so many people who care so much about these topics. The thing that concerns me is that there is also a level of fragmentation, and that is in different disciplines, that is different companies, that's software, that's hardware, that's the developers, the researchers, the educators, the clinicians. There are so many different groups that I think the more we can do to bring us all together, the more powerful we can be in these concerns and these important pieces of this process. The more fragmented we are, then the more it's going to be difficult to get anything done. And so we're going to end up with a whole lot of conversation, not a whole lot of action. And so the more we can come together, the people who are listening to this live, the people who are here in the room with us, the more we can come together and be organized and be clear on what it is that the vulnerable populations need, and the better we can do to set this up in a powerful way for the future.
Our next question, I'll give an example myself. What are some good things that we're noticing now on different platforms? And example I have is Spectrum Labs got together with Together Labs in an alliance, and they're sort of applying, artificial intelligence to the process of sorting through communication. And what they're looking for is not all of the, and they are looking for the toxic stuff, but they're also looking for examples of positive play and good behavior that they can call out and then sort of reward the players in Together Labs InView application. And so, it's sort of the opposite approach of what you usually hear about. And so I thought that was very interesting. You guys see some other good things happening on different platforms, and we'll start here with Kathy.
I think platform specific. I think we could be here all evening. So what I might do is actually say, in the space that we're currently in, what I am seeing is the services that are dedicated to protecting children. Now, they are as far and wide and have lots and lots of different interventions. So I certainly want to go back to We Protect, In Hope, the Internet Watch Foundation, NECMEC, and how they're working with many of the larger platforms to eradicate, prevent, and remove all forms of child sexual abuse and exploitation material. And for me, there is something about the priority of how we can protect children is by making sure that we do the things that are positive. Now, sadly, we don't see a lot of that in the news compared to the negatives that appear on social media and in the mainstream media. And certainly those positives, I think, need to be communicated more. So I know that they're happening. I happen to see more of the negativity, mainly because of the work I do, I think. So more often than not, I do feel like I work in the world of cyber trauma. I work in the world of virtual abuse, virtual trauma, and I don't get much time to go looking and reading the positives, yet I know that they are there. I know that Roblox have their civility program, and as Jessica was saying earlier, we are in the space of providing these things, but again, I think it's quite specific to certain paradigms and domains as to where we see that. And sadly, because of the work that I do, it is mainly in a negative space. So it does cloud my vision a little.
Yeah. And Amber, good examples from your point of view?
Sure, and I agree there in terms of naming platforms. We could be here for a long time going through, but I think the types of things that I think are valuable, again, cross-culture, in different interactions, more of the age verification, the type of age verification that opens up conversations between parents and kids, and encourages that kind of communication in an ongoing way. We could probably covered a lot of these product interventions that, kids having their own sort of digital literacy flow as they engage and sign up into the different apps on a deeper level, I think, and pitched at the right level for them, as well as various features like boundaries, and all of the traditional measures that you would get on social media. What's really interesting is that if I think continually the research with kids finds, and I would say particularly as I've been researching in forums like Japan and Korea, certainly there's a desire for just more tools and more autonomy among youth. And so I just think that is what they're after. And so education flows that set them up with tools to understand, oh, this is a user I'm interacting with who has been, for example, blocked this many times. That kind of transparency actually gives people their own information to decide whether they want to be interacting with a particular avatar or person as well. So, I mean, there are a lot of these. And then the other thing I think is the application increasingly of the identification of behavioral signals in the AI. I think, we discussed this, Dean, and it's, especially as things move to audio, the ability to detect harmful content is just going to be extremely difficult in a decentralized environment. And so, actually moving towards some of these detection systems that will use signals to detect those who are, misusing the technology. I think that needs to be applied across the board. So those are just, a few of the things that I think are useful in this space.
Mm-hmm. And Jessica?
So for me, when you ask the question, a lot of what colleagues here have brought up came to mind. And in addition, I really focused on the word play that you introduced in that question. And so taking it a little different direction, I would like to point out that in terms of positives that I see, particularly with my clients, is that there are a lot of opportunities for exploration and
Jessica,
for
your audio got a little bit garbled there for a second. So can you back up about one sentence?
I apologize. Yeah. Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay. Is the ability to explore and to present one's identity and representation. And so what I mean by that is if a person is struggling with their personal identification, they can come into a world and they can create an avatar in a way that either they would like to be represented or that they are exploring as a representation, and interact with other people in those ways. And there can be a lot of power to that. If we think of the one of the main jobs of adolescents, for instance, is to figure out, at this point in history, it has changed over the centuries, but is to figure out who we are, what we believe in, what's important to us, what we want to take from our family of origin or society, what we don't. And that process has changed quite a bit in the digital realm, because now we can literally change things about our avatar, change things about the characters we choose to be in games. If we're playing on a team and you want to try out being the healer, for instance. So whatever the roles are, I think it's an amazing time. This is just one tiny example. That's an amazing time for people to be able to explore who they are and how they want to be in the world in a way that we haven't had the opportunity to do in the past. And I think that is a positive that I have seen be really, really powerful for people.
Can I
Okay.
throw another
Yeah.
line on the top of that, Jessica?
ahead.
In terms of the word play. So Sonia
Yes.
Livingston said in her keynote earlier that for children to take risks in play, they need to be safe. And both Jessica and I obviously work with children and work doing this as a day job, so to speak. But the space in which children can take those risks has to come from a place of safety. So for me, there's something about what we're talking about this week is safety. And what does that actually mean for a child in order that they can explore, they can take risks? And I suspect that that's also going to include that interpersonal safety. It's also going to include the elements of play and being able to explore and feel safe whilst doing so. So I know that you and I both use technology to allow a child to expand, generally in their adolescence, to take those risks. And I think that that's one of the things that technology massively allows that has never been a part of an adolescent's identity growth before now, has it?
Absolutely.
Sorry, Dean. Dean. I just took over your job.
Oh, go ahead. That's fine.
And just to be clear for people who are listening, Kath and I have very much a focus on safety and security when we're using these tools as well, and understanding them in using these ways, and discussions with families and caregivers and the children. Like, this isn't just, oh, what a fun thing, let's just do this. There's a lot of thought, planning, and importance that go into that.
And I do want to get to audience questions at some point, and
Sure.
so if you guys could start thinking of some of those questions now. I want to ask one more question before we get, because I want to make sure that we cover this one area. I'm feeling a little philosophical here, so everybody brings up artificial intelligence, and will it work here in this space of protecting people? Or will it fail? Right? And I guess what's interesting is that there's so many things happening right now. Look at generative art. Everybody has said that the cost of creating video game art and creating metaverse art is going to be so monumental that they don't know where to start. And then all of a sudden, generative AI comes along to start creating more things than we would ever want. Everybody, I don't know if you guys have looked at your social lately, but everybody is posting their own sort of portraits generated by AI now. And it's come on so fast. And I do wonder, the thing that everybody says is that, like, we're going to be able to keep up with the volume of the metaverse through AI. And that, we're going to surface all of the things that are toxic and need to be addressed in some way. A lot of the safety can be addressed by AI. It's like AI is always kind of both the answer and the thing to be afraid of, I guess. But I'm curious what you guys think, and whether you see AI as your friend in helping you get these things done that you want for safety. Let's go over to Amber for that one.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that AI is important, and it's going to be important, but it's not sufficient, in summary. And again, what I was mentioning before is, we're going to see increasingly decentralized spaces, and as you said, the creation of these spaces and this content. And I just don't think it is realistic to think that AI is going to be, of course, the answer to keep kids safe alone. However, it definitely plays an important part. And, you know, we were mentioning before about NECMEC and the Internet Watch Foundation, and there's certainly going to be necessary use of AI to detect child exploitation, and some of that's going to have to adapt, of course, and the reporting to those bodies and is going to need to be updated and really important to keep going. However, yeah, I think the future of it is in really using AI to understand like general meta signals and behavior on platforms, and understand the nature of people's interactions, what they've actually been involved in, and whether, you know, they've had harmful, well, you know, potentially harmful interactions with children, with minors, and whether they're being blocked and that kind of thing. I think that kind of AI and that kind of detection is going to be really necessary. But as a whole, I don't think that we should ultimately be relying on it for the safety of children moving forward.
And Kathy.
So I geeked out when you started talking about generative AI and artwork, because actually it's been in the NFT space for quite some time. So I've been watching that side of things for a while develop. But certainly, yes, it can be an assistant, but it will I don't think it will ever take the place of humans, because we often are the outliers. And, you know, given that AI is pretty much designed by humans, it's going to have those errors and biases. And navigating the space of safety is I think it's going to require that element of understanding trauma. And one of the things about trauma, so I'll give a very quick example. So in this space the other day, I was watching the camera moving around the room, and what I noticed is, even though the bubble exists for in this space, in Alt VR and Meta are putting it into place, it's still possible to have avatars come towards you and go through you very quickly, which for a person with a form of interpersonal trauma, that can actually be quite disconcerting. It can be off-putting. I actually found it a little bit like Ghostbusters, where they talk about the ghost going through you. But then I applied it to how would in this particular question, as you're asking it, how would AI pick up on that? How would AI know that an avatar moving through somebody else's avatar is actually disconcerting to a person with a vulnerability? And how can we identify that for all users of the space? And that's one of the things that in the real world, a person can move away from. And, you know, just going back to the questions earlier, what might we be facing? Well, there's an example of one kind of potential issue. And I don't know whether the algorithms would ever be complex enough to understand interpersonal distance and threatening avatar movements, you know, big hand movements that might be off-putting, for example. And I know I've slightly gone a bit bigger with that question, but I don't know that AI can do what humans can do just yet.
Yeah, very, very interesting answer there, I think. And Jessica?
So I think that humans crave some type of balance. And so back to one of my responses earlier, thinking historically, if we have some powerful tool, then usually it starts out as being very exciting and used a lot, and then there comes to some sense of the pendulum swinging from side to side and then landing somewhere in the center. And so when I think about that, I think about when digital cameras came to be and came to be popular is there were a lot of conversations about photographers who would take pictures on an old school manual camera, and that there were going to be things that were going to be lost in that. I think we've arrived at some type of balance in that. There are places and situations in which a digital camera is phenomenal. It is convenient. It's now, on our phones, some of the things that a digital camera can do nowadays are just amazing. The photos that can happen and the different ways they can be edited and whatnot. And yet there is also something very powerful and hits us on a visceral level when we see a picture that has been taken with a manual camera where the aperture has been chosen by the human eye to produce a certain results, and there's importance and value in there too. So I think even when we get further and further into discovering the different things that AI can do, that there will be a sense of balance at some point that will be reached, and then something new will come and disrupt it all, and then we'll do it all over again.
Awesome. And let's see, we have some time for Q&A. I wonder if anybody wants to type in a question to us. Let's see if anybody's prepared to do that. And also raise your hand if you have a question. Okay.
Mystic, you're able to ask a question. Your microphone.
Okay. I don't see raised hands. I don't see questions either.
Hi.
Oh, there's one. Here we go.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Good afternoon on the East Coast. Well, actually, evening. Wow. The day is flown by. I just had a very, very sort of quick question. I have a 7-year-old that is just in love with the Oculus. And I'm wondering, is there research on any potential harms that could result from a 7-year-old using the Oculus on a routine basis?
What do you mean by harm? Because it's quite a large topic.
All of the above. Psychologically, could there be any impacts on? Could there be any impacts on vision? On though I guess my question is more focused on physiological. We know what social media and other things sort of can do to young folks, but I'm concerned about physiological impacts. Will it have an impact on her vision, her brain development, those types of things?
There's a lot of conversation about that for sure. These are, I'll let you just like Kath. So a lot of people talk about this. There are absolutely question marks, big question marks in those arenas. And there has been some initial research done. There was a research study done at some point regarding the headset and the weight of the headset on a small neck. Some of that research is not very well done. Some is. So I think where I come down to is these are really important questions, and you asking those and being concerned about the impact on your child is really important. And we don't have the data yet to really understand that on a level to say yes or no. There are so many depends that go to that, and that complicates it for sure. So not being able to give a grand answer on that leads it to the concerns that you do have, the balance in your child's life, the all those kinds of things, combined with how the headset is sitting on the neck, how much time is being experienced in the headset. There are a lot of different factors to look at, and I'll stop talking so Kath can answer.
And almost repeat what you've said, Jessica, although I have a background in optronics. So I'm really curious about ocular vision in terms of, particularly with the Oculus, as it's aptly named. What I've noticed is what I tend to do is use myself as a case study a lot of the time. I find that I will get eye fatigue. Now, that's mainly because I am slightly older than a child, but what I notice is that I limit it for certain amounts of time because I'm aware that eyes that are trying to look into the distance, which is what we do in the Oculus headset, for a long time are not getting the condensed shorter vision, so the close vision. And what our eyes need to do is practice close vision, extended vision, peripheral vision, relaxed vision. And that's one of the things that doesn't seem to happen in the headset space. Now, that's going to require people like ophthalmologists to do more studies, but that's going to be difficult if it turns out there's a negative effect, because what that will actually then come to fruition is that we might be damaging children's eyesight in order to find out whether it damages children's eyesight. So we're stuck a little bit with an ethical quandary. Certainly in terms of brain development, and this is definitely echoing what Jessica said, brain development is complicated. There's lots and lots of things that happen, and any one event can result in disaster, for example, a traumatic brain injury, so a bump on the head, a concussion, and we can't directly attribute the use of this technology to anything that we could say is causational. And that's the difficulty with a lot of the technological research is often you will find some of the research says, oh, using it for X equals X. And that's not necessarily true. So what I would certainly say as a parent, and I am a parent myself, my children are in their mid-20s now, is decide what's good for you as a family and watch your child, gauge your child's reactions, physical tiredness. You're looking for things like fatigue, and those would be the physiological kinds of things. And then the psychophysiological would be, and what are they doing there? What's the modus operandi? Who are they playing with? Are they rage quitting, for example? And if so, that then becomes a conversation for mum and child, dad and child, co-parent and child, guardian and child, teacher and child. So we all need to be in this together. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It does. Thank you very
Very
much.
good. That was a big question, and I think we have time for a short question and short answer. Anybody got one of those? And raise your hand if you're interested. And let's see. I guess we can sort of bounce off the last one of how do we get parents involved without sort of blaming or shaming them? Well,
I talk a lot about co-play.
Yeah.
I talk a lot about co-play. It's so important. You know what your child is doing, what they're interested in. It doesn't mean you have to be involved in every nook and cranny, but what is it they're playing and why does that interest them? Is it a certain role that they can take or a way that they feel or people they interact with, something they're learning, and play with them? I actually got into this whole conversation about incorporating digital anything because I started to play a game that my children were interested in when they were young. And I learned so much about them and how they saw the world. It was really powerful. And instead of sitting in the car with two of my children in the back seat, having conversations I didn't understand because I didn't know what they were doing and playing, going from that to either contributing and being part of that conversation or at least understanding the conversation that was happening. And it really did change the dynamic between me and my children for me to do that. So I always encourage co-play for a number of reasons. It's just really powerful.
So anybody else want to contribute on that?
Yeah, I would certainly say. Actually, Jessica, in the United Kingdom, we have a journalist that's put together an entire cohort of all of the games that exist for parents, so that they can learn about games and their age ratings. It's taminggaming.com if anybody's interested.
Wonderful.
But I would certainly say, I think how we get parents involved is we don't shame them, we don't tell them how to parent, and sadly, most of the education out there at the moment is framed in a way that says you're not doing good enough, your children are in danger because. And I would absolutely love to see that narrative change to you're doing a great job. Here's what you can do to help your child that little bit more. Here's what we can do to help you. So I find that a lot of the parents who I deal with in therapy often say, well, I didn't know about that. And the schools are sending letters home, for example, saying, beware of this, don't let your child on that. And parents feel overwhelmed by do's and don'ts, the same as children. So if we could say, this is what we would like to do to help you, I'm sure that, in terms of human to human, that would feel much more compassionate and empathic. And now I am going to be quiet.
Very good. I think we're about 3 minutes. We got about 3 minutes left. Anybody else want to?
Just going to say that I've got a question bouncing off that, but also one comment, and that is, I think that if we frame it as an opportunity in general, if we're talking about not after something's gone wrong, but beforehand, an opportunity to deepen your relationship with your child, like, this is where they spend their life, a lot of their time. This is how you are going to be able to, engage with them more fully and build your relationship with them. And I think that's, something that appeals to parents without blaming or shaming about something that could go wrong, or the fact that they're not doing something in particular. It's more of an opportunity. And then I had another question, which I think is interesting. So in Korea, for example, they've abolished, what they call the Cinderella law, the shutdown law, where you can't game between midnight and 6 a.m., for example. And now they're trying in Korea to promote the choice permit system, where games sign up, and then that a child will need to talk to their parent, for example, about how long they want to be on that game, and then get a permission to be on that game for a certain amount of time. And so this kind of leads me to the question I wanted to ask my fellow panelists, which is, how do you feel about sort of regulation and rules and these features that happen in products as a way of sort of requiring parents to engage, but in some ways, shaming or anything like that. It's just something that you now have to do if your child is accessing this service or this game. So how do you feel about the role of regulation with parents? And I'm throwing that to my panelists without warning them, but I'm very interested with your backgrounds in speaking to so many parents, what you think of that.
And we got 30-second answers for this one.
Yep. 1 minute or less. Go, Kath.
I'm not entirely sure. I think it's a good start, but also what it does do is it creates a lot of discord between parents and child. Any kind of regulation requires parents saying, yes, but that's it, you have to turn it off. And then what I find is the child in therapy is very upset with their parent, and now I've got a different problem to deal with.
Very interesting.
Very interesting.
Make one comment myself. I thought it was very interesting that China was regulating minors and getting them to play maybe 3 hours a week. But then at the same time, everybody during the pandemic was looking at video games and saying they're making people happy at a time when everybody is so miserable. And in that sense, that's like, you know, I don't know what you guys or what the, you know, the right conclusion is, which is like, you know, people should restrict how much people play, or the opposite of that. They should let them play as much as they want.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is a
Interesting.
fantastic question for Kavya to have on next year's
Mm-hmm.
XRSI.
Definitely. Definitely.
All right. Well, very good. Thank you, everybody. It was an interesting session.
Yeah, thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Perfectly at time. That was very interesting. A lot of
Clapping
good
here.
actionable
Right.
insights. We have a
Right.
5-minute break now. Y'all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank
So
you,
we've got a
everybody.
5-minute break now. Really appreciate your time. Thank you, Dean, for moderating, and Kath, Jessica, and Amber.